hear your mic moving around, Sean.
All right, sorry, I just forgot to bring
the
up
other Sean
my
unmuted.
bringing up my agenda. Sorry, folks. All right, welcome. We are here. It is the special meeting of Halifax West. We'll just do a quick little check of folks' microphone and camera, and then we'll work through this. So, Councillor Morse.
Present.
Great. Councillor Mason.
I'm here, Mr. Chair, sir.
Councillor Cleary.
Hit the wrong button. I am here, accounted for, and I am in the middle of the war.
Thanks for that. Councillor Stutter.
I'm here, thank you.
Right, and Councillor Cuttle.
I am present.
All right, so we're all here and accounted for. I will go to number 2, approval of the order of business. There are no added items, I believe.
I'll move the order of business.
All right, moved by Councillor Mason.
Second, Councillor Cleary.
Second by Councillor Cleary. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. Moving on. Number 3, a call for declaration of conflict of interest. Seeing none. All right, we're moving to consideration of the deferred business. November 8th and December 10th, 2020. 4.1 case 22332 municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw amendments for R4 zone near Dunbrack Street, Halifax. Councillor Morse, take it away.
Okay, do we need to, should I just read the motion on the floor for tonight, or do we need to deal with the one from last week?
So if from my understanding, you put the motion that's on the agenda on the floor, and I believe you want to defeat that and put in another motion, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, so yeah, put the motion on the agenda on the floor, and then we'll do a vote. And this, what you want to defeat, whatever the will of the committee is, and then you can put your new motion on.
Okay, I just need 1 minute to bring it up here. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, the motion that's on the floor, because it was deferred, is actually already on.
You're right.
You don't need to read it. We can just vote on it.
Let's do that. Thank you for that, Councillor Cleary. So if there's no further comments on the motion that's on the floor, I ask for someone to call the question.
Question.
All right, question's been called. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
All right.
Nay, Sean.
Nay. That motion fails. So now I ask Councillor Morse to put on the circulated new motion that you worked on with folks, and
Okay.
I'll get some popcorn while you read it.
Yes, bear with me, it is a bit long. I move the Halifax and West Community Council recommend that Regional Council 1 give first reading to consider the proposed amendments to the Halifax Municipal Planning Strategy and the Land Use Bylaw for Halifax Mainland as described in attachments A and B of the October 15th, 2020 staff report to be amended to only apply to the proposed new designation and zone to 210-214 Willett Street, Halifax, and to amend the proposed R4B zone as follows. 1, increase parking standards to 0.7 spaces per dwelling unit. 2, require that 25% of dwelling units contain a minimum of 2 bedrooms. 3, increase the side yard setback along the west property line parallel to Chelsea Lane of 210-214 Willett Street from 18 meters to 30 meters for the main building closer to Willett Street. 4, increase the side and or rear setbacks on lots which abut any R1 or R2 zones from 8 meters to 10 meters. 5, reduce the density of the project to no more than 325 units per hectare. 6, reduce the maximum permitted height as shown on the height precinct map, see attachment B2, from 26 meters to 20 meters. And 7, realign the height precinct boundary as indicated in attachment B2 so it is 30 meters from the western property line. B, the proposed amendments to the land use bylaw for Halifax mainland as set out in attachment B of the October 15th, 2020 staff report to amend the zoning for low density residential properties to better match existing development and to rezone parkland to the park and institutional zone. And C, schedule a public hearing. 2, adopt the proposed amendments to the Halifax Municipal Planning Strategy and the Land Use Bylaw for Halifax Mainland as amended in Recommendation 1 to attachments A and B of the October 15th, 2020 staff report. And 3, direct the CAO to continue to consider amendments to the Dunbrack Street study area and commercially zoned properties south of Radcliffe Street and adjacent to Dunbrack Street through a comprehensive review process, such as the regional plan or plan and bylaw simplification program, suburban plan, that provides greater detail and consideration of the following: A, appropriate building heights, building forms, site design, and the impact of traffic, including from full build out of potential development, including wind and shadow analysis. B, improving transition to lower density properties, including appropriate setbacks, side yards. C, revising parking standards. D, a greater portion of dwelling units to have 2 or more bedrooms. E, proposing better active transportation routes and new public green space. F, creating a density bonus regime like that used in the center plan to fund local area improvements and affordable housing. And G, options for inclusionary zoning.
Second.
Second.
Great, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Mason. Councillor Morse.
Well, thanks everyone for your help with this, especially to staff. This is an effort to ensure that this new development, which is going to add much needed housing in the area, is also complementary to the neighborhood. Some of the changes are that since it originally appeared is that there are 2 buildings rather than 3. It's going to have less shade impact on the surrounding areas. There's also a bigger buffer zone with the neighbors in the back of the building. And there have been some changes. The main thing is to separate out the surrounding area from the approval of this project so that we have more time to look at what's appropriate for the upper part of Clayton Park. I don't know if Sean Gillis would like to add anything to this.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Anything from staff before Councillor Mason speaks?
The thing I would recommend would be that if we could put that motion in writing in the chat box to make sure that we all have it, we're all looking at the exact same thing, that would be valuable. Unless there's particular questions, I don't have a lot to speak to, but happy to discuss anything about this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sean. Councillor Mason. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I saw y'all reaching for yours at the same time. So first of all, I want to thank Councillor Morse for her dogged refusal to accept something that, while needed on many levels, clearly she'd heard over and over again during the election campaign that there were a lot of concerns in the neighborhood. And it's hard, right? It's hard when something like this has got momentum to consider a reboot or change in direction. And so I think it's really good that we are, I guess what I've been saying to people is, aren't elections awesome? Because this is a big change and this is what we're hearing from people, and I think that it's great. So I'm excited to see this going forward. This has been a real journey of exploration for me, trying to help the councillor and staff realizing that I just don't feel that we have the full set of research and examples to turn to for suburban densification the way we do in the regional center. I think it's going to be similar, but I don't think it's going to be the same, and I don't think that we've quite worked that out yet. So I think, I support the motion, section 1 and 2, absolutely. It gets that going forward while addressing most of the concerns that can reasonably be addressed to the community. It's section 3 of the report that I do have the motion. It's so long I called it a report, sorry. Section 3 of the motion, question for Mr. Gillis is, there's still debate with councillors about what exactly that would do, whether we should ask for a staff report or a memo about what section 3 would do, or whether we should just do that, move it forward, give clear direction to staff, and when would we see things coming back? Because I think the issue for me is we want to consider the area as a whole and potentially as a template for other similar suburban redevelopment. But what we don't want is for a bunch of property owners to come in and want further one-offs based on what's gone before so far, right? Like, we need to see a more comprehensive approach, which could be just changing what's already been done with the study area and the R4B to address the concerns that are raised. So, like, what happens next? How fast can something come back? Or is it, I know there's a staffing and horsepower issue. I know the suburban plan isn't coming back right away. We're only just starting this regional plan review. We just voted on it yesterday, the public engagement. So what are your thoughts about what happens, in the next couple steps with section 3, please?
So I'm going to take a minute to think about that one. It's not 100% clear because I think the direction that we as staff would appreciate and happy to discuss would be how comfortable is council moving forward with potentially transformative projects without a very clear plan in place, whether it be land use, whether it be built form, infrastructure, even just basic piped infrastructure, green spaces, all that. So that would be one thing. There are other planning staff on here. So in terms of talking about resourcing, someone else can probably help out with that if needed. I think what I would be looking to do is, I think the key word there is to continue. So I think the next step would be to get a sense more formally of who is out there looking to do stuff. We've had some tire kicking, we've had some letters, you've seen one of them. And from there, I think the next part would be, if there's, again, this is resource, with that question in mind. I think the real question is, how do we approach public engagement on this? And that's a really potentially huge thing because that's resource intensive. And there's just so many huge questions about what do you want to ask. And so the second question to council might be, how much does council want to weigh in before we do public engagement? How much do you want the regional plan weighing in before you do public engagement? I think the thing that from this project, from bus rapid transit, and just looking at the buildings on the ground in the area, there's going to be demand from the private sector to redevelop here. And from a planning perspective, there's a lot of reasons to put many people here. That can take lots of different forms. So with that being said, I think one of the things that council, if you feel kind of a pit in your stomach hearing that, saying, oh, lots of people here, better to have the discussion now on that number 3. So hopefully that provided some value without saying that it would be a pretty fluid process, I think, because the regional plan is starting to run kind of getting closer to parallel to this. And suburban plan, well a ways off, will be informed by the regional plan. So hopefully that provides some information.
That does. Thank you very much, Mr. Gillis. So I'll just leave it by saying, I think this is a great, I said to Councillor Morris, I went and drove around on all the little side streets and on Willett and tried to really kind of dig into like what are the possibilities there. And I think, along the bus rapid transit corridors, and I've talked to a lot of staff about this, that we need to establish what is our dwelling unit count goal, what needs to be done to support future enhancements so that we are ensuring there's adequate density in the plans going forward and in any project proposals that come forward. And then we start talking about what the developments might look like and what kind of built forms we're looking for. It doesn't have to be to my mind, a complete down to the square foot plan of everything. That'll never happen. We just don't have the resources, and by the time you get something like that done, it's already out of date. But I think we need to provide some comfort to the councillors and to the public about what we want to see. And I think that can come through the regional plan process and a couple of distinct or discrete reports. I'm inclined to pass 3 now, because the key thing for me, and I'll leave it with this, is it doesn't say continue to consider spot zoning. It says continue to consider a comprehensive review process. So we're going to have further discussions about this, and it's going to have to come back to council. We're not going to want people walking in on a site-by-site basis. I think that's what it's saying. If it's not saying that, then we should have that discussion. So look forward to hearing what the rest of council has to say. If there's something Sean wants to throw in there, that would probably be a good time for it.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. So I'll just, before I go to Councillor Cuddle, Sean, the last piece that Councillor Mason spoke on, I just wonder if you have any clarification on that, on the continue to consider aspect.
So, I mean, that's fairly wide open right now, and that might be a portion of the motion that we might want to provide a little more guidance on. So I think there's a number of things that were in the back of my mind as I worked on this, and one of them being, what does council want to do with potential requests for more amendments within this area? So for newer councillors, individual property owners can ask that their municipal planning strategy designation and policy be changed. That's where this project originated, with the 210-214 Willett request. And out of that, what generally happens is there's a formal application, there is a initiation report sent from staff to council saying, hey, let's take a look at this or not. So that would have happened about a year and a bit ago for this one. And essentially we have the initiation, we're ready to look at it. I think what this one is saying to me is that if an amendment comes in, I think we'll put it into that continuous review. I think this would keep it open to say, well, we told you to continue. There's no need to initiate again. The policy process is opened. But the big proviso in there is under a comprehensive review process. So to me, that says not one-offs. And so I guess I'd leave that to council if they feel comfortable with that motion being strong enough. I think you might want to do a little amendment, maybe to provide, it's up to you. Comprehensive review process to me says not one-offs. Your comfort zone, I think, would be appropriate there. What do you think? To me, it's fairly strong. And we would also have kind of the discussion we could go back to and say, look, we talked to council and we said comprehensive review means not one-offs. Thank you for your idea. We're going to come out with the public, and it will come back to council in the proper time, whether that means waiting for the regional plan, a first phase of suburban plan, some further direction from council too. So that's also.
This will be an important one for us to actually read the minutes next meeting and make sure all this is recorded.
Yeah. I mean, with that in mind, though, I mean, to add into the motion where it says a comprehensive review process, not site-specific amendments, that might be very valuable. I mean, that would be 100% clear. Possibility there. Kurt's got some ideas.
Yep, thank you. I'll leave that up to the committee to decide it, but I think having the comprehensive review process in there is clear enough for not one-offs. Sean, you got lost in the report chat, so I'm gonna let Councillor Cleary go, and then Councillor Cutter after him.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am very happy to see this moving forward, especially for the particular property application that we see in front of us, and then the study area, or the portion of the study area that we're continuing with. My comments around what Mr. Gillis just said would be that it is comprehensive, but if I'm not sure, and I'll allow our solicitor at some point to weigh in, but if someone said, given our plan, I want to develop my property, and the plan is from 1978, and there would be very little, I think, from a legal point of view, to say no, council can't entertain your application. Having said that, I think what we need to do is, if any applications come in aside from the current one, it needs to be viewed in context of what we're doing today and what staff have already proposed for the study area. That would be my interpretation. So when we look at what we're doing here, the regional center, and especially the inner ring suburb, is extremely important to add more density, and to add more density in a way that is both sustainable and livable. And I think Councillor Morse has described what her vision of that is and where we're moving forward with this particular area. I do have a very specific question for Mr. Gillis, though. So looking at this amendment, and particularly the edge of the property that would be close to the properties on Chelsea Lane. So we're increasing that buffer from 18 meters to 30 meters. When we talk about that buffer, and we talk about specifically increasing the parking ratio, we want to have more parking underground than obviously surface parking. So with that buffer, does that mean the applicant can put parking under the buffer? Or does the buffer mean that they can't put parking in that area anywhere underground or elsewhere? So I guess if we're going to make them do more parking, can they put some of that parking under that buffer, would be my first question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as written in the motion, it specifies a 30-meter buffer for the main building. So accessory entrances to a parking stall, surface parking itself, potentially some outbuildings for servicing and that sort of stuff could go in there as written right now. So, but underground, my understanding, talking to the applicant, is essentially a whole whack of the site, almost all of it, except for the existing trees along 210-14 Willett, will be a big parking structure. Just sitting
okay. So the buffer is just surface level relative to the building itself, not
the main building. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so I just want to make sure,
building.
I totally appreciate where the local councillor is coming from in requesting more parking, and I just want to make sure the applicant is able to put the parking on site in an appropriate way that is both unobtrusive and also respects that particular buffer. I mean, my own personal opinion is, eventually, perhaps at some point in the future, there should be townhouses along there, maybe another street. I'll leave that for another day. I think where we're going now is appropriate, and I'll support what the local councillor is doing. So that was the only question I had, just to make sure that that was there. I believe, when we look at what the local councillors proposed as amendments, the parking, the family-sized units, 2 bedrooms and above, the green spaces, the view of this whole district along Dunbrack, I think is appropriate given where it is. So I will support the amended and proposed new motion that's on the floor here. So I thank the local councillor, I thank staff, I thank Councillor Mason and others that work with Councillor Morse. I think we've gotten to a place where we can move this forward, and staff have direction to look at the other parts of the study area to make them appropriate for the context that they're in. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First I want to say that I appreciate all the work that went into this motion and what was put on the table. I have a couple of questions for staff. One is, the original terms of reference for the rezoning that was proposed in the previous motion around the increase in density. I'm just wondering what those kind of terms of reference were. And I think it's a very good point that's being raised about how we move forward from here, because we do know that this area is a good area to see some redevelopment happen. But you know, it's not just about density. It really has to be about making it work as a livable community. I'm happy to see the unit mix in the motion for the current development that's being proposed. You know, I think that's a good thing. We need to kind of think across the spectrum of people and lifestyles and age and differing needs, and that, you know, this needs to be built into kind of all developments that are done. But, you know, really, we can't just see the inner suburbs of somewhere to go and stick a bunch of density. And even just talking about it in those plain terms, for me, is a big issue, because we have to be creating communities that work for people, that have that quality of life and have that livability. So, you know, part of me is thinking, you know, and this goes back to my original point around what the terms of reference were for the original rezoning of the study area, that, you know, there needs to be almost like a better framework. And if there was a better framework to work with, then perhaps we could move forward with other proposals in that district while we wait for the regional plan review to happen. But as it was presented, just really looking at density and as the driving factor, it wasn't enough to convince me that it was going to result in a quality community. And I think we have a responsibility to be ensuring that the zoning we set up is leading to that kind of a quality community. You know, I understand the need to support the bus rapid transit lane, but that can't be the only motivation for what we're doing. So question about the terms of reference, and my other question is about if we could come up with a better framework for this study area that doesn't require such a comprehensive review and kind of hold us back. And 3, the piece about the parking, I'm just wondering, you know, right now it's being phrased that we're making the developer put in more parking. I'm just wondering, as of right, what the parking requirements are, and if the 0.7 spaces per unit is more or less than what's currently required. To you, staff. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take a crack at some of these. Please remind me if I missed a couple.
Yeah.
The original terms of reference, or the initiation report, was quite focused on the potential and the problems, if you will, with the R4 zone. So it was very much a zoning exercise in many ways, and the associated policy. I think a lot of fair critiques at the last meeting and this meeting of that process. I think there's a focus on density for sure. I think it might have been oversold, if you will, from staff, from myself last time. There's also a big focus on building form, the basics of what should a good building sitting next to the sidewalk or close to the sidewalk be, how big and where, with the obvious idea that it's council's decision whether we provided enough information and whether it goes too far too fast. But I guess the quick answer would be it was a policy exercise focused on building design and building form, not a full master plan or community plan, if you will. The framework to put together, so this is a resource question very much. I think the project that to my mind is close and worth talking about is how I'm going to back up a bit, probably about 4 or 5 years now. So before Center Plan came in, Center Plan was in the process of essentially saying, we know we have major corridors. We know we have some sort of needs, desires for density on those areas, and we have a rough idea of how big that might look like. And at the meantime, there were upwards of 20 different site-specific amendments that had trickled in and then became a torrent over the couple of years leading up to that process. And so what staff did was they came back and said, we have 22 of these. We understand that you don't want to move things that will be contrary to the broadly accepted idea of the center plan. And then we sort of ranked them. Here's the ones that are really close. Here's the ones that we think we can get there. And here's the ones that at this point aren't there. So we had a kind of a 3-tier system. And again, it's been 3 or 4 years. So if I recall correctly, council broadly endorsed what we said and said, move the top 2 tiers forward as best you can. And then they gave the other ones a chance to come closer to center plan. And we broadly finished up most of those. Some of them are kind of tidying up. The difference there is that the center plan was treated as the framework. So they had done a number of years worth of work on which corridors are most appropriate, how big things should be in different areas, what building forms work, what are our guiding principles. So we can take the guiding principles to a certain extent, which would be complete communities, walkability, and just good urban form, good urban design. We can take those, but what we lack is some sort of building size, building intensity framework. And as I mentioned to Councillor Mason, I believe, last meeting, what we've proposed is quite dense, and that's only a proposal. So it's what staff felt could work in the area, but that idea of how much, what building forms, what type of mix, we don't have it now. Not that we can't work on it, but that becomes the resourcing issue and the council direction issue. So, and the as of right height, I will take a look for that. You give me, sorry, if you give me 2 seconds, it's in the report somewhere, so I'll dig it up.
Yeah, the as of right parking or height. Parking?
Yeah, parking. You said parking.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's great because you asked, what's the appetite for transformative projects? And, I think there is an appetite for transformative projects, but not ones that are going to lead to bigger issues down the road. And so I don't know how we can address that in a way which allows things to happen, but doesn't lead to mistakes. I just look over on Washmill Creek, and I look at all those apartments there, and, it's like, is this another one of those in a different form? Because the thought hasn't gone into what the experience is on the ground. I mean, and one of the other things, if you're building all this density, it's like really about commercial. Is there an opportunity to make Willett kind of a mixed use street with some commercial development to service all these, hundreds and thousands of units that are going in there and really be transformative, moving us away from kind of the suburban strip mall into what is actually a complete community. So I think there's like a lot of questions there, and it's on one hand we want to move, rush forward, on the other hand not in the wrong direction. So I mean, that's kind of where I feel betwixt and between on all of this, and I don't know if there is a solution beyond a comprehensive review process that could get us to that point.
Right. Sean, do you have the answer on the parking?
Through you, Mr. Chair, across broadly all the zones in Halifax mainland, for residential units, it's 1 parking space per unit currently.
Okay.
So the 0.7 is a reduction of as of right. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Cuddle and Sean, for that. So there's no one else who asked to speak. So just looking to make sure. Oh, yes, Kurt. You're muted.
Sorry, I was late. I was having technical difficulties. They're doing construction on my street. One thing I think council should keep in mind here with what you're proceeding forward with is that their staff will have to respond to this. So there will be a supplementary report that will be associated with this. In terms, because council will have to have the actual amendments in front of it before it actually can set a public hearing date. In terms of the third motion that you're passing, I think it's something that you need to send back to staff for options, because it is how best to do that because of the debate that has gone on so far, how that will occur, when it will occur, and under what resources that we have to do that. I think council will need to have answers to those questions before it can really proceed in terms of how it may want to do that. And when the report comes back, it should have those things addressed.
So really quickly then, are you saying that, well, I heard one thing that this is going to come back to us for the amendments, but for the part 3, are you saying that we should ask, except for saying Director CEO ask for supplementary report aside from the main motion?
All the 3 motions that you have will require a supplementary report. So when you pass this motion tonight, it's going to go to regional council. So before it gets to regional council, we'll have to provide a supplementary report to it. So your job tonight will be done. You will pass your motion tonight, and then we'll provide a supplementary report to regional council saying, based on your recommendation, if you wish to proceed in this direction, this is how you need to proceed.
So what you're saying is tonight we don't need to add anything different or to change the wording. You're comfortable with this information that's going to come back to us in the way it is in the form of the motion?
Yeah, so the motion that you pass tonight, it will go on to regional council, but before it gets there, we will have to provide a supplementary report because you're making changes to documents that require regional council to be perfectly clear what it actually passing a motion on when it moves forward. So for even motion 1, it says only to deal with 1 unit. The amendments as they are written now are for multiple properties. So it has to be clarified. So all I'm really saying is that there will have to be a supplementary report from staff before this will proceed before the regional council can deal with it. Okay,
Councilor Cleary.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe just a quick question to our staff on that particular point. So for clause 1 of the motion, which is to move forward with the applicant on this particular property and schedule that public hearing. So any idea how long it will take, and can we prioritize certain aspects of that when it goes to regional council by deprioritizing other parts like number 3, for example, so that it can be assessed by staff, a report can come forward quickly for that first part in particular, and what time frame are we looking at?
So, through you, Mr. Chair. So, absolutely, we will look at bringing the amended package for 210, 214 Willett forward to regional council first. And Kurt, I think we were saying that January 12th meeting is a possibility, and then the next meeting would be the other hopeful date in January. So look to Kurt.
Based on the timeline and holidays and people on vacation, the second meeting in January is more realistic than the first. We'll try for the first, but it's more realistic. It will be the second. But
still in January. Okay, I'm okay with that. I think that's good. If we can make that first meeting on the 12th, that's even better. But obviously, if we can make the next one, that's good too. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Cleary. Councilor Cuttle.
Thanks. So I'm not 100% sure what's happening to the third part of this motion, but if we are approving it and moving it forward for a supplementary report, you know, and I take guidance from you, Councillor Morris, on this, I might include in here something about mixed use and neighborhood commercial.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee, the current zone does allow a fair bit of commercial use on each site. So I guess the question from staff would be, would that be wanting to allow more commercial, as in a bigger footprint, or actually requiring commercial. Some of our zones, we do require commercial on the ground floor. So a question on that note, should you go down that path? Just some clarity that would help staff, I think.
I'm not 100% sure what is currently allowable.
Through you, Mr. Chair, up to 4,000 square meters. So that's kind of like a small Sobeys, to give a ballpark. And sorry, I've got a lot of stuff opened here, trying to go through them. At a high level, your general retail, office space, services, restaurants, that sort of thing. So very similar to what you might see on Dutch Village Road, Quinpool Road. So a pretty broad mix of uses allowed, with the cap on how much. And I can look in more detail if you would like. I just have to find that here in on my computer.
So we're oh, you're muted. So just while you're muted, we're close to time, to the 3 minutes. So if you want to bring something forward or just wait for clarification from Sean, I'll let you go forward.
All right. I guess I would like to bring forward a friendly amendment to also look at commercial form and the quantity of space.
All right, so that, can you say it one more time for me, please?
I would also like to add into number 3, right, to look at quantity and size and form of commercial development.
So, Mr. Chair, that would be adding clause H, perhaps.
Right. So that'd be adding H, and I don't know, and maybe solicitor. Is Meg's here, right? I think Meg's here. Solicitor, is that considered a friendly when you adding another piece to it, or is this something we have to vote on?
You guys should vote on it. So
okay.
Motion to amend, adding H with that language that was just provided that I can't remember exactly what it was.
Right.
And then you all vote on that and then vote back onto the main motion on the table.
Okay, so then I'll ask if
seconded by Councillor Cleary.
All right, Councillor Cleary seconded. So if there's any, now that we have another round of comments, I'll let you clarify, Councillor Cuddle, on what you want to achieve.
Gosh, I've never done this before, so please bear with me. Am I making a motion?
So the motion was made.
Did.
So So the motion. So I wonder if the clerks were capturing that, and we can put it in the chat. So what you mentioned, what you moved. I'm trying to remember and I can't. So when it gets in the chat, I'll be able to read it.
Just look at the language here. The consideration of the following commercial space, including the quantity, form, and use. Would that capture everything, Sean? Does that make sense? Eric, does that make sense? See you waving your hand.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that makes sense to me. If for a motion, if there's any further direction that the committee would like to provide in the comments, that's always helpful. But I think we can definitely work off that and get some information back.
Okay, great. And Eric, you have comments too.
Thank you. I think I just really wanted to comment on a high level perspective that ultimately, when you look at the resourcing, and I know questions were coming up about this will likely come back through suburban plan. The timing is just, it's going to be such in terms of what we have available to us that this will come through there, and it will be a comprehensive review. So whether we get into the specifics of what things we're going to look at, we're ultimately going to be back to council saying this is when we want to initiate the suburban plan, this is what we're going to be looking at doing. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting into the specific things to look at. It doesn't hurt, but I wouldn't worry if you feel like you're missing anything or otherwise, because we'll likely be capturing it through a larger process.
So you're saying this is fine to add if committee wants to, but this is still can be explored whether or not it's on the motion or not. Okay.
Yes.
So, Councilor Cuddle, it's up to you if you want to continue to vote on it, or you think that with the comments that Eric shared that it would suffice. But it's totally your choice. It's on the floor now. So actually, yeah.
Let's vote on it. I mean,
right.
let's go for it. I think it's
right. Thank you, Councilor Morse, I believe. Yeah, Councilor Morse.
I just wanted to mention briefly that I did have some discussions about commercial property or commercial ventures in this building, and I'm very much in favor of mixed use, but we also have to consider that certain ventures are more viable than others, I guess, and since there is not a huge amount of parking with this building, then that also would impact on a store or a commercial venture. So I just wanted to raise. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I believe there are no further comments on the amendment. So I ask that the question be called on the amendment, and I'm just going to read it really quickly just so folks know. The draft motion is that Halifax and West Community Council add Part H, commercial space, include the quantity form and use in section 3 of the whole motion. Cool. No. In question. All right, question has been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? See none. That is now added. So the main motion, the main motion that we're speaking on today has added H, and if there's no further comments on the main motion,
question.
Seeing none. Question has been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, that passes the amended motion. So good job, Councilor Morris. Claps and thumbs up for you. And we'll move forward. Thank you, staff, for being supportive there. And we're moving on to 5 reports. 5.1.1 proposed 2021 Halifax West Community Council meeting schedule. We'll put a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair, since I asked for the amendments to the schedule, I'll be happy to put it on the floor. I move that Halifax West Community Council approve the proposed 2021 meeting schedule as presented.
Moved by Councilor Cleary, seconded by Councilor Cuddle. And I believe there's no comments. We saw it, no issues. Happy that you made this change because it makes sense. It follows along with what we've been doing in the past. So happy to do that. So with that, I'll call for the question.
Question.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against or opposed? Seeing none, that passes. So meeting schedule is set. We'll get appointments. Yay. So next meeting is scheduled to be January 19th, 2021. Holy moly. Wow. Any words of wisdom before we adjourn our meeting for 2021?
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes, appreciate it.
All I want is peace on earth and some vaccines. That's what I want.
That's great. I hope you get that. Well, appreciate it, everyone. Everyone have a good holidays and Christmas, or whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. This is the last meeting, and see you all around. I call for someone to move adjournment.
Councilor Cleary moves to adjourn.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, staff, and everyone on the call. Have a good one. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone. Season's greetings.
Thank you.